Black Twitter's #1 fantasy sports and entertainment podcast. We are back with another NBA Draft 2022 breakdown to discuss one of the most intriguing and let's just call him futuristic prospects in this class. We are here to talk about Auburn forward Jabari Smith, 6'10", 7'1" wingspan, the best shooter, I think, by far in this crop of prospects. I'm joined with my guy, young Raz. Raz, we can get into the proceedings. Jabari Smith, man, what have you made? We've crunched film. The film has been watched.
Yep.
What did you make of the Jabari Smith experience as a freshman at Auburn?
I think he went and, I think coming into the season, we had kind of an idea of who, the top two picks would be between. And he gave everybody, all of the scouts and all of the inquiring minds, fans, NBA Twitter, whatever you could think of, a new thought process about that evaluation. He played himself into legitimate #1 pick talk. So I think from there, we can say that, the experience for him as a freshman at Auburn was a great one for him, right? And I can see the hype that's been built around him. He's somebody who comes from, some athletic pedigree. We love players like that. His father played in the NBA for a brief stint and also played at LSU. 10 years professional. So he has basketball in his blood. Like you said, he has one of the best pull-up jump shots in college basketball last year. And
years.
Yeah, and he's somebody where it's just he kind of, we don't like player comps, but you start thinking about who could he, remind you of, and some of the smooth pull-up jump shots that he would have. And just it looks so natural. You start thinking of players for me, I started thinking of players Rashard Lewis, who is somebody who if he came along 8 years later, 10 years later, Rashard Lewis is, and he also got a max then, right? So it's he would have been super maxed out here, just with his shot making ability. And I think he was somebody who was pretty poised and had good defense, and he has the ability to switch 1 through 5 in college. We need to see what that looks like on the professional landscape, but everything that he showed us this year as a freshman at Auburn has gotten him into first pick considerations. So I just for me, that's a glowing success.
Going back to Rashard Lewis, I think that is the comp that everybody uses, and I think that one just jumps out to you. It's picture to picture. I think that's the obvious comp with him. Rashard Lewis got $100 million contract when that was absurd, and cats weren't getting $100 million regularly. That was the level of player that he was. I mentioned it earlier just about the rare class of shooting prospect that Jabari Smith is in. He does put him in rare company. It's a beautiful jump shot. I think that is the #1 selling point. If you're looking at Jabari Smith as your one of one, there's 3, possibly 4 players who you can make an argument. If we're just talking about in hypothetically, ignoring teams for a second, particularly for this draft, it's going to be team fits that really distinguishes who goes at the one of one. But a guy like Jabari Smith, man, the jump shot is just beautiful. Really proved the ability over the course of his one and done season at Auburn to where he has beautiful shot mechanics. It's really hard to contest. Consistently proved the ability to really shoot over the top. Even with defenders draped all over and in his body, you combine that with the defensive versatility that Jabari Smith brings. He has really strong defensive instincts as a team defender. I think as a help side guy, as a help side, weak side shot blocker, he's going to be a presence. Gotta disagree. You said 1 through 5, but he's going to be swinging between the 3 and the 4 for sure.
The 1 through 5 was just college, and I said he would have to prove that NBA. So it's just I have to see that on film. Can he? Not all of the 5s. I don't. Nobody can guard Embiid. Nobody can guard Jokic, right? But can he guard some of those smaller fives and less offensively gifted fives? I think he can be able to hold his own, but that comes with the NBA training and weight training, of course, because he is a little bit thin to guard some of those dudes.
He has really high hips. Like Raz, it's like, bro, just watching like basketball, man. It's crazy how many guys just don't get into like a good defensive stance over the course of the game. Like, if you're not really in a good defensive stance, you're just making the guy who has the ball's life, the ball handler, much easier. Like, it's real easy to blow by a dude that is like half-ass in his defensive stance on that. And I do think for the high hips that Jabari does have, just athletically, I think he does really like get down low. Into a good stance. He can possibly improve his foot speed. I don't think he has the greatest foot speed. I'd probably like grade it out as probably like average, maybe marginally above average. But I do think he does possess the ability to both survive on the island as a point of attack defender. Probably throw him on guards, or you probably don't want to throw him on the bulkier type of wing and staying on some of his strengths for a second. He's never going to put up gaudy rebounding numbers. He's not afraid to box out his man on the offensive glass. I think he's a really good team rebounder in that sense. He also goes up in high points, a lot of balls at their apex, which is a good instinct to have. What would be your biggest concerns, or if we're talking about reasonings that you would be like, you would have an issue with taking Jabari Smith at one?
This year, he made a lot of tough mid-range shots. And his shot profile will include a lot of tough mid-range shots. And we kind of just watched that happen this year in the NBA with the regression, with somebody like Julius Randle, who spent all of the kind of half of the COVID season just knocking down ridiculously tough shots. And as you know, it's hard to make a living like that. That's why only a few of the greats are the greats, and they're the only ones that can hit those consistently. I think he'll need a little bit better of a shot profile, and he'll need to increase his physicality so he can get to better spots, so he doesn't have to settle for fadeaway mid-range elbow jump shots. He'll be able to get to a better spot for himself.
That's kind of the number one, I'm saying? The shot profile is definitely a little less than ideal, and I think how that translates to the NBA level will be interesting. Less than 25% of his shots came at the rim, so we're talking about an extremely jump shot heavy profile. And like I said, we talk about his jump shot. The jump shot is incredible. He has the ability to shoot over anybody. I didn't mention how good of a shooter that he is in transition. Like, bro, I can't recall, like, if you want to go back to Rashard Lewis, but just talking about like other, but since Rashard Lewis came into the NBA like early 2000s, so we're talking about a span of maybe like close to 20 years more, basically, to where there's not a lot of forwards that can match what he can do. Like, he's aggressive in like transition, hunting his shot, and that's extremely rare. But this is not to say that if Jabari goes number one, he's a legitimate prospect who could go number one, beauty in the eye of the beholder type of thing. But for Jabari, like you did, if there was any cause for concern or like slight trepidation with Jabari, he has to be basically like a top 5% shooter, top 5 to top 10% type of shooter to really be worth that pick when we get to the NBA level. Talk about a couple more of his weaknesses. He's a good athlete, not a great athlete. About his finishing around the basket, struggled getting all the way to the tee for the defense. If you go through and watch, like I said, I went through, watched all of his games at Auburn this year, and he would go long periods. I'm talking like 10 plus minutes at times, 15 plus minutes, sometimes halves, where he would not get all the way to the tee for the defense and getting his feet. That's a huge concern. Why that is, I think there's a couple reasons why. The dribble is going to need to improve for Jabari. He's a play finisher at this time of his career. Talk about his passing. He's also not like the best passer for this profile. I think he's very easy to get sped up and make poor decisions, or kind of also when he's trying to drive to the lane, he can't get stripped by other defenders. So that's just, most prospects, that's kind of just like a universal in terms of prospects that need to tighten up their handle. But that's super important for Jabari. He has a chance to do it. I wouldn't write it out. It's not going to be an overnight thing in terms of how he's going to be able to create for himself or even just becoming a better passer. That would be huge. By even having a better escape dribble, improving that versatility and adding more counters to his game is going to be really important for his shot creation profile for himself. He's basically limited to in a half court setting. He's basically limited to straight line drives or basically getting to a 1 or 2 dribble pull up. And we just talk about how difficult that is going to be. I think he's going to be a plus shooter. But when you're only living on that type of shot diet, that's gonna really affect your ability to actually be efficient at the next level. So I think that's a huge concern for him as well. What type of fit do you think best unlocks Jabari for him, no rap? He has a lot of swing skills that can go his way. We talk about the defense. We talk about he's already going to profile as an impact, basically stretch big, who's also going to be a plus defender, which is a really rare and valuable archetype for NBA teams. There's not a lot of guys like that in the league. And they would run him off of pin downs, and they're using him off of screens. And I think his motion shooting is also an outlier skill that he also possesses. So, I mean, just in terms of usage for Jabari Smith at the next level, if you're in the NBA front office, how do you go about really getting him to get to his spot? A lot of times teams might just put a smaller guy on him, and even though Jabari is going to be able to probably shoot over him, I think a lot of those shots teams are going to be able to live with. But how do you see utilizing Jabari best on offense?
I mean, right now it's stretch 4, like you said. But I mean, I think as he puts on a little weight and he's able, I think he's always going to be a 4. I think that's just going to be the position that he's going to play. That's the way the game is trending. He's going to be able to exploit some mismatches. I think as he works on his rebounding, and that comes with some of that strength and just positioning and understanding the game a bit. I think he can be used more in some role situations, which will get him closer to the rim, which will probably improve those rebounding numbers, because right now he plays, like we said, he plays far from the rim, and he isn't somebody who has to even attempt for these rebounds. So I do think offensively, getting closer to the rim, working on some offensive rebounding and that shot profile will have him as a pretty decent usage power forward in this league, with the ability to create his own shot in spurts and knock down the shot with like you said, an NBA talent lead ball handler.
Thinking long term here, when we talk about this class in general, taking the long road and at the type of players that this guy or these players can be. So, I mean, what do you foresee just in terms of long term outlook for Jabari Smith? Like when the dust settles for him, what type of player and what type of impact do you think you'll be getting if you take a top 5 pick on Jabari Smith?
Top 5 pick, I think. I think obviously his upside is pretty high. I think you feel like with a top 5 pick here, you're taking a pretty good swing and a pretty good roll of the dice. I think he provides his ceiling is a little bit lower than some of the other top 5 prospects for me, just in regards to his shot profile as it is currently constructed. If that's going to be what he lives and dies by, I think that allows for him to have a lower ceiling. But I do think with his talent and his shooting skills, at worst you have a 10-year 6th, 7th man type of contributor, and I think at best you have a star.
In terms of possible upside, I think he might have the longest way to go to get to his possible 100% outcomes, like superstar potential. I think him getting to superstar potential in that basically encapsulates him improving as a ball handler. It also he has to probably unlock another level of athleticism, also become a better passer, which is all possible, but it's a couple boxes that he has to check off. But I think if you told me that he ends up being a 38 to 40% shooter from outside, a plus defender, somebody who's averaging 18 to 20 points, I think when you run the outcomes and let's say, just the simulations of what these guys end up, and guys aren't going to always hit their ceiling on every simulation, obviously. But I think in general, the profile that he's going to bring, I think he has an extremely high superstar role player with a ceiling impact on a starter, like a ceiling impact, a good team on a team that can compete for winning at the end of whether it's the Eastern Conference or the Western Conference, a team. I think you're going to be able to build a cohesive roster around Jabari Smith. But I think there's a lot to like with Jabari Smith's here, man. I think he's kind of the biggest wild card for me out of the top three. So yeah, man, that has been the Draft Season Podcast. It's been the Jabari Smith video. Let's know in the comments what you guys think about Jabari Smith. Where do you guys want to see him end up? Where do you think he ends up as a player? It's been the Draft Season Podcast. We'll be back with more content coming soon.